Now, the crucial test would be at probably when London opens or by end of day to check whether the rally gets sold into or gets bought into. Much of that will depend on foreigners' perspective of the results of the elections in Haryana and Maharashtra. Do they strengthen the political mandate? Do they have they come in a little less than expected? Will the support from the NCP tarnish the image of the NDA and Mr. Modi? A lot of questions abound while taking a view on the Indian political economy. To give us a perspective on all this is someone who is best placed to do that, Shobhana Bhartia, Editorial Director at Hindustan Times. Shobhana, thank you very much for joining us this morning. What's your own opinion of the numbers that you heard from Maharashtra and Haryana, especially Maharashtra? Were you expecting something better than what you heard?
Honestly, no. I wasn't really expecting anything much better. In fact, one thought that the BJP Shiv Sena jointly would get the mandate, would get the majority. And then over the last 2-3 weeks, one started hearing news on the contrary that BJP was doing extremely well. BJP was possibly going to cross the magic figure of 100, which incidentally has not been crossed for the last 2 decades. And then the BJP's own hype actually took on a momentum of its own. And whoever you met in the BJP and the BJP leaders, senior leaders, all started talking about 130, 140, even 150. They also actually pegged the vote percentage in Maharashtra at a much higher figure of over 34-35%. It actually was 27 or 28%. So that hype made one start wondering whether they were actually going to get, a majority on their own. But if you leave that aside, I think their performance has been quite spectacular. I think they've done extremely well. They've come a long, long way from where they were completely dependent on our ally. So I think overall the performance has been brilliant. It's just that, when you try, and there's a bit of a mismatch with the hype that BJP had created. But on the other hand, as far as Haryana is concerned, I think the BJP felt they would be the single largest, but they were still slightly more sort of muted about their expectations. And there they've actually thrown up a surprise by getting the magic figure on their own. So all in all, I think they've done a splendid job, goes without saying.
Shobhana, hi, good morning. Yes, no two ways about that the BJP has done a good job both in Haryana and Maharashtra. But, the problem in Maharashtra was that coalition politics for a long time has prevented real work from being done or real reforms in Maharashtra. And now once again we'll have a coalition government. Do you think that will hinder the growth in our own state?
One has to actually wait and see who they decide to ally with. I mean, there's nothing like having a government with a majority of its own. But having said that, the BJP is going about it in quite a kind of a calculated and a shrewd manner. They are holding their meeting. They have sent observers. They will decide who will be their chief ministerial candidate. And I think the decision of whose support to take will come only post that. So I think that bargaining power of parties to say we want so-and-so or we don't want so-and-so for the chief minister, I think that is something that the BJP is going to completely exclude from the whole narrative. But naturally, having said that, if they do have a coalition, their hands will not be as free. But on the other hand, if they decide to go and take outside support from NCP, though in the short term their image will take a bit of a beating if they do that. But if they do take outside support, then I think they will have a lot more flexibility in terms of running the government on their own terms and in terms of being able to deliver better. But of course, taking outside support also from the NCP does come with its own pitfalls, especially after the very acerbic campaign that we saw and the BJP hurling all kinds of charges and calling it the National Corrupt Party. And, when BJP has made corruption a major issue nationally, for them to ally with a party which is also perceived as being very corrupt is not going to really help its image at all. It then shows that in politics, principles don't matter so long as you just get there. And the BJP has always claimed, at least this election around, that, they are standing for principles, they are against corruption. So one has to wait and see which way they go.
Okay, well, let me come to the more pressing or maybe more dramatic announcement that we saw on Saturday. The gas price almost marketized, will be set every 6 months, and diesel marketized immediately, right away from November 1st. Do you think that now you can expect more reforms from the market, from the government? It's taken its time in coming, but it's come clean and sharp. What's the expectation now in the winter session?
Expectation definitely is to see more reforms. To some extent, the by-elections that we'd witnessed had seen somewhat of a setback as far as the BJP was concerned. There were some murmurs, but I think the last two results that we've seen have sort of validated the BJP's thrust and focus on reforms. I think it's a mandate for development because both the mandates have shown that, they have been able to break the caste equations and able to garner the votes of a large section, focusing on employment, focusing on progress and development. So I think it validates their model. And, some of the changes in the ministry itself, some of the announcements, all sort of are pointing towards more to come, possibly in the winter session. Hopefully they will address the whole land acquisition issue, which is also going to be quite imperative if they do want an impetus to growth. So hopefully some of these issues will be perhaps tackled. Then our sources in HT believe that they do have a plan to also roll out GST, though perhaps not in the holistic form, but trying to break it up and doing it in a more phased manner. So hopefully I think they'll start fast-tracking a lot of the reforms that they have been talking about, but I think they were also testing the waters, but they have started. And now I think with the run-up to the budget, you're going to see more reforms and perhaps, a big bang budget.
Okay, we hope to see that. Now that things have moved on the diesel front, it's been deregulated, do you expect to see a lot of more work done on LPG, on kerosene as well in the next, say, 3 to 6 months?
I think so. I think they should be sort of looking at those areas. And, this whole cash transfer also, I think, was a good move. It's something that had been talked about even earlier. Even the UPA government was talking about it. But BJP has taken the step to free up diesel and all, and then even for LPG to get the transfers done on cash basis. So I think they would be looking at these areas too in the coming months, or rather we hope that they would.
Actually, one of the misgivings or doubts about the new government is the possible talent crunch. The one big minister they had was also hospitalized for a goodish bit.
Yeah.
Now with the way in which they've done the diesel and the DBT, the LPG direct transfer, do you think that misgivings come down or that persists, the doubt persists?
No, I think they're two separate issues.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you can't do these things, but naturally the bandwidth that you really require to give, a monumental thrust to a lot of your policies would be much simpler if they had the talent bandwidth, which they clearly do not have. There are 3 or 4 star performers, but if you try and look beyond that, one can't see the talent. Of course, perhaps they've not had any experience and they've not had the opportunity, so it's a catch-22 situation. And some of these so-called unknown faces may surprise us after 6 or 8 months, who knows. But as it seems today, they definitely seem completely starved of talent. So there are some people holding multiple portfolios, few ministers, and doing a lot of work. But if you do want that monumental impetus, then you definitely need to get in more talent. Where and how they're going to go and identify that talent is anybody's guess. Whether they actually look beyond the political appointments, whether they look at technocrats, whether they feel the need to do that. There was a lot of talk, if you remember, before the government formation that they will bring in some technocrats. We didn't see any of that happen. One is hearing talks about another reshuffle before the winter session of Parliament, which is towards the 3rd week of November. And I think it would be important for them to showcase their best for that session, because they have, they do have many people holding multiple portfolios. Whether that would in the long run be feasible or not, you know, the jury is out. So they definitely do seem like they could do with a lot more talent.
Just an aside question, Shobhana, because you do speak to a lot of sources, what's the sense you're getting about who could be the best candidate for to become Chief Minister in Maharashtra? I mean, now it looks like, you know, the game is between Pankaja Munde, Eknath Khadse and Devendra Fadnavis. But in your mind, who could be the best candidate?
Very difficult to say because none of them have actually sort of been tried and tested. But not to say that that should be seen as a big deterrent. But just purely on the basic logic that, you know, Fadnavis was the BJP president and actually worked towards bringing the party to this level, he seems to be an obvious front runner. But then again, it will be a decision that they take, I think, to some extent also on the basis of the region and the caste, whether they want a Maratha, whether they want a Brahmin, whether Fadnavis being a Brahmin is going to come in the way. So I think eventually these issues will also be taken into consideration. But having said that, it does seem that Fadnavis enjoys an extremely clean reputation, has been an MLA for many terms, has been extremely participative and vocal in the assembly. So does seem to have a reasonably good chance of making it.
Okay, Shobhana, actually I have plenty of questions, but I believe I'm running out of time. Okay, let me put this one. You know, there is a BJP government now in practically everywhere that the freight corridor and the DMIC runs, the Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor runs. You know, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, all these states are now BJP states, so to speak. Do you think we're going to see faster implementation of these very big infra orders from the government?
Definitely. I think in a sense that augurs well just in terms of the development and in terms of the centre being able to carry forward some of the policy initiatives, because in our federal setup, I think the concurrence of the states for many of the sticky issues is a must, and the fact that the BJP controls this region, you know, right from Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, coming to Haryana, it's like a contiguous corridor, and it also controls a large chunk of the nation's GDP because it is a very, very high GDP area. So I think it would augur very well because they can make some of these states sort of role models in terms of following through the direction that the centre wants to take. Like Rajasthan started on labour reforms even before the centre got a chance to do it. So I think the fact that they've got this entire corridor of states which are in their kitty will help them, even in rolling out GST.
Yes, but do you really think Maharashtra gets to the status that Gujarat has got as a state easy to do business, or is the rot simply too deep?
Well, the rot has also been deep to a great extent because of the kind of political patronage that's been there. So if they do go in with a government that wants to do things differently, you can make a difference.
We're really praying for that.
So we come back to square one about it being you know, a coalition government and coalition politics coming into play. But we hope all of that gets cleaned up. Thanks so much, Shobhana, for joining us.
May not be a coalition. It could be outside support, and therefore, you know, it may not actually land up here. It could be.
Yeah, and actually
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Shobhana, and have a great Diwali. Have a great summer 2071.
Thank you to both of you too. Thank you.